picture this. You're standing on the floor of this sprawling, state-of-the-art manufacturing plant in the near future.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
But instead of just the usual automated assembly lines, you're watching 350 next-generation humanoid robots
Right.
working right alongside human engineers.
Wow. Just casually throwing humanoid robots into the mix?
Right. And they're assembling a vehicle that basically defies everything we expect from a daily driver right now. It's an EV that can drive a staggering 1,400 kilometers on a single journey.
Wait, 1,400? That's insane.
Yeah, and it can recharge in just 10 minutes, and it operates entirely on this centralized supercomputer that was co-developed with Google.
See, if you pitched that to me out of context, I'd assume we were talking about some heavily funded Silicon Valley startup, like something born out of a tech incubator meant to disrupt the whole industry before they run out of venture capital.
Exactly. But it's not.
Yeah.
This is the official, publicly declared vision of a 127-year-old European legacy automaker.
Oh.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack exactly how Renault is attempting to entirely reinvent itself. We're looking at how this massive, historically slow-moving industrial giant is trying to restructure its entire DNA to survive and dominate the electric age.
And we really have a fantastic stack of sources to pull from today to figure out if they can actually pull this off.
We do.
Yeah, we're synthesizing insights from a really deeply sourced inside baseball report by Italy's Corriere della Sera, along with a super detailed strategic breakdown of emerging markets from India's auto car professional.
And, of course, the primary source itself.
Right, the foundational document. Renault Group's massive future-ready press release, which literally just dropped a few days ago on March 10th, 2026.
Okay, so to really understand what's happening here, I think we have to look backward for just a second. Back in 2021, Renault was basically in survival mode.
Oh, absolutely.
They launched that Renaulution plan just to stop the financial bleeding.
Yeah. Renaulution was pure triage. I mean, they were just trying to keep the lights on. And to their credit, it worked. They launched 32 new vehicles over 5 years and completely stabilized the ship.
Which is no small feat.
Not at all. But now, under their new CEO, Francois Provost, who took the reins from Luca De Meo last July, they are shifting gears entirely.
Right. The whole narrative is changing.
Exactly. The stated goal of this new future-ready plan is to transition from a success story to a success system.
The success system.
Yeah. They don't just want to be profitable anymore. They want to become the undisputed benchmark for European car makers globally.
But the reality is, you can't revolutionize your company's financial profile without completely overhauling the actual physical products you sell.
No, you definitely can't.
And the sheer scale of the product offensive they're planning is, frankly, it's hard to wrap my head around. They are targeting 36 new models by 2030.
36 new models in basically 4 years.
It's crazy.
For a legacy manufacturer, that is a blistering pace. Usually you see one or maybe two major platform launches a decade.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's break down how they actually plan to pull that off across their three main brands.
Yeah.
First, you have the core Renault brand.
Right.
They want to hit 2 million sales a year, but the fascinating part is that they want half of those sales to be completely outside of Europe.
Yes, that is a massive detail.
And within Europe, they're aiming for 100% electrified sales by 2030.
Ambitious.
Very. Then you have Dacia, their budget-friendly brand. They want to accelerate Dacia's electrification to about 2/3 of sales, but keep that philosophy of raw, stripped-down affordability.
Which is what Dacia is known for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, Alpine, their sports brand. They're leaning heavily into high-margin exclusivity. So we're talking models like the A110 successor, the A290, the A390, and those ultra-limited series like the A110 are all-time.
The geography of those core Renault brand targets is what really tells the story here.
How so?
Well, think about why there's this massive push for 50% of sales outside of Europe. It's because the European market right now is an absolute bloodbath.
Oh, for sure.
Legacy automakers are under unprecedented pressure from highly efficient, vertically integrated Chinese EV manufacturers. Companies like BYD, they own their entire supply chain, from the lithium mines all the way to the shipping vessels.
Which gives them a massive pricing advantage.
Huge. So Renault knows that to survive, they have to find growth hubs where the market isn't quite as hypersaturated with cheap Chinese EVs. So they are aggressively targeting places like India, South America, and South Korea.
Wait, hold on. I have to jump in here because I'm looking at these numbers. And 36 models in 4 years sounds like a recipe for a quality control disaster.
It does sound like that, yeah.
Right. Because historically, when legacy automakers bloat their lineups that fast,
Mhm.
engineering resources get stretched thin, platforms get rushed, and reliability just absolutely plummets. How are they avoiding the trap of doing way too much, way too fast?
That is the exact right question to ask. The
Hmm.
key is that they aren't actually building 36 completely unique vehicles from scratch. That would be impossible.
Okay.
They are aggressively utilizing modular platform sharing. So they engineer a single, highly flexible skateboard chassis, the battery, the motors, the suspension, and then they build drastically different top hats or bodies on that same foundation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it allows them to launch an SUV in South America and a compact city car in Paris
Oh,
using
wow.
the exact same underlying engineering. It drastically cuts down on that development chaos you're talking about.
That makes a lot of sense. But I want to push back on another apparent contradiction I saw in these sources.
Right on, me.
So if the whole narrative is that EVs are the undeniable future, and they're terrified of falling behind Chinese EV makers, why is Renault explicitly stating in these documents that they are going to maintain hybrid technology in Europe well past 2030?
Right.
And on top of that, they're still heavily pushing Daicia's LPG-like liquefied petroleum gas vehicles.
Yeah.
That doesn't exactly scream future-ready to me.
I get why it looks like a contradiction, but it's actually a calculated, very necessary hedge. This is the difference between a visionary tech startup that can just burn venture capital for a decade and a publicly traded manufacturer that has to meet payroll for tens of thousands of factory workers today.
So they can't just flip a switch.
Exactly. Renault is choosing to meet the customer where the infrastructure currently is, because not every market, and honestly not every buyer, has the home charging setup or the budget for a pure EV right now.
So it's about not abandoning the current buyer while you try to invent the future one.
Spot on. By keeping highly profitable hybrids and LPGs in the mix, they maintain this highly resilient financial baseline. They are specifically targeting a 5 to 7% operating margin across the board.
Okay, so the hybrids are the cash cow.
Yes, those sales are the money that is actively funding this hyper-expensive transition to the electric future.
That makes perfect sense. They need the cash from today's cars to build tomorrow's platforms. But targeting 50% of your sales in emerging markets like India and South America is a pipe dream if the cars are priced for European luxury buyers.
Absolutely.
They have to fundamentally break the cost curve. And their target is it's a staggering 40% reduction in EV costs.
A 40% cost reduction in automotive manufacturing is almost unheard of. I mean, usually engineers are fighting for fractions of a percent. They're fighting to save 3 cents on a door hinge.
Right.
To cut costs by 40%, you can't just optimize your current supply chain. You literally have to entirely redesign the fundamental architecture of the vehicle itself.
And that redesign is what they're calling the RGEV Medium 2.0 platform. And the specs on this hardware, which was developed primarily in France, by the way, are genuinely wild.
They really are.
First off, it uses an 800-volt architecture. That means you can pull over, plug into a fast charger, and get a meaningful charge in just 10 minutes.
Let's pause and actually explain why that matters, because 800 volts gets thrown around as a marketing buzzword a lot.
True. Break it down for us.
So when you're trying to push massive amounts of electricity into a battery quickly, the main bottleneck is heat. If you use a standard 400-volt system and just try to jam more power through it, the cables get dangerously hot.
Like melting hot.
Exactly. But by doubling the voltage to 800, basic physics dictates that the current drops. This means Renault can use thinner, significantly lighter copper wiring throughout the entire car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Less heat buildup means faster charging, and thinner cables mean less weight and cheaper manufacturing costs. It solves an engineering problem and a financial problem at the exact same time.
Okay, that is a massive unlock. So that handles the fast charging. But what about range? They're projecting up to 750 kilometers of range for the pure EV versions of this platform.
Which is already great.
Right, but here is the kicker. If you opt for the EV range extender version, you're looking at a massive 1,400 kilometers of range. And they're still keeping emissions incredibly low, like under 25 grams of CO2 per kilometer.
A 1,400-kilometer range completely, fundamentally rewrites the psychology of buying an EV. I mean, it absolutely obliterates range anxiety.
Right. At 1,400 kilometers, your bladder is the bottleneck for the road trip, not the battery.
Exactly.
But as impressive as the physical hardware is, the software strategy is what really caught my eye here.
Yeah.
In 2026, Renault is officially launching what they call the Software Defined Vehicle, or SDV. And to really grasp what a leap this is, I think we need to look at how legacy cars were built.
Historically, cars have been built like a chaotic committee. You might have 80 or 90 different tiny computers inside called electronic control units, or ECUs.
Right.
One controls the windshield wipers, one controls the brakes, one does the infotainment. And they were all bought from different suppliers, and honestly, none of them really knew how to talk to each other.
Exactly. The SDV completely blows up that committee model. Instead of dozens of dumb computers, the car is built around a centralized node architecture. It's more like a central nervous system with a single, really powerful brain.
Yeah.
And that brain is running the first true Care OS, co-developed directly with Google, based on Android.
Which is such a massive strategic shift. By partnering with Google for the Core OS, Renault doesn't have to hire 10,000 software engineers to try and reinvent the wheel.
Right, leave the software to the software guys.
Exactly. It allows them to decouple the hardware engineering from the software iteration. Because of this centralized brain, 90% of the car's functions can receive deep systemic updates over the air.
So not just map updates.
No, we aren't just talking about updating the GPS. We're talking about waking up and finding out your car's suspension geometry has been tweaked for better cornering, or the battery management software has been optimized to give you an extra 20 kilometers of range overnight.
It transforms the car from this depreciating physical asset into a rolling supercomputer that theoretically gets better over time.
Exactly.
But of course, the most expensive part of that supercomputer is the battery. And this is where Renault's strategy gets incredibly pragmatic. They've adopted a dual chemistry battery strategy.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that this is where you see the business acumen shining through the engineering.
How so?
Well, Renault realized that putting a massively expensive high-performance battery into a cheap daily commuter car makes zero economic sense. You are just pricing your own customers out of the market.
Right. A city car doesn't need to drive 800 kilometers.
Precisely. So they are splitting it. They're using high energy density chemistry paired with that 800-volt architecture for the long-range premium models. But for the smaller A and B segment cars, the city runabouts, they are using a much more affordable battery chemistry on a 400-volt system.
Which still charges in a respectable 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly. By matching the battery chemistry perfectly to the price point and the use case of the vehicle, they protect those 5 to 7% margins we talked about earlier.
Speaking of protecting margins and supply chains, we absolutely have to talk about the motor they're developing.
Wow, the EESM.
Yes, the sources detail this new 275 horsepower motor called an EESM, which stands for electrically excited synchronous motor. It operates at 93% efficiency on the highway. It costs 20% less to manufacture, but the detail that really matters. It uses 0 rare earth materials.
If there's one thing you, listening to this right now, take away from the engineering side of this deep dive, it should be the significance of that ESM motor.
It's a game changer.
It really is. Traditional EV motors rely on massive permanent magnets to create the magnetic field that spins the wheels.
Yeah.
Those permanent magnets require rare earth metals, specifically neodymium. And right now, the vast majority of neodymium is mined, refined, and completely controlled by China.
So traditional automakers are entirely at the mercy of a foreign supply chain for the most critical component of their cars.
Exactly, but an ESM ditches the permanent magnets entirely. Instead of using a rare earth magnet, it uses copper coils carrying an electric current to generate that necessary magnetic field. Yeah, it replaces geopolitically sensitive Chinese mined minerals with pure engineered physics. Renault isn't just saving 20% on the cost of the motor, they are scoring a massive strategic victory. They're basically insulating their European manufacturing base from global trade wars, tariff spikes, and resource bottlenecks.
It's brilliant. So, okay, inventing the brilliant tech, the 800-volt platform, the Google OS, the rare earth-free motor, that's step one. But step two is actually building the thing at scale without bankrupting the company.
Right.
And to see how they plan to do that, we need to go back to that factory floor we talked about at the very beginning of the show. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The humanoid robots.
Yes. Renault is officially deploying 350 next-generation humanoid robots into their factories. They're going to handle the heavy, highly repetitive, or just low-value tasks that really wear down human workers.
Which makes sense.
But as flashy as the robots are, the truly revolutionary stuff is happening in the cloud. They're building what they call an industrial metaverse.
Now, I know metaverse is a word that has been abused by tech marketing for years.
Absolutely.
But in industrial manufacturing, it is a very real, very powerful tool.
Essentially, every single physical plant Renault operates globally will have a digital twin in the cloud. like a perfect, real-time digital simulation of the factory floor.
Think about why this matters. Let's say Renault wants to change the angle of a robotic welding arm to improve chassis strength. In the physical world, testing that requires shutting down a multi-million-dollar assembly line, moving heavy machinery, and just hoping it works.
And if it doesn't, you've lost hours of production.
Exactly. But with a digital twin, they can run 10,000 simulations overnight in the industrial metaverse. They can find the mathematically perfect trajectory for that robot arm without ever stopping the physical line once.
That's incredible. And the ultimate goal of all this sci-fi manufacturing setup is speed. Historically, it takes a legacy European automaker 4 to 5 years to design, test, and manufacture a new car.
Which is an eternity now.
Right. Well, Renault is explicitly targeting a 2-year vehicle development cycle.
They have to, because 2 years is the speed of the Chinese car makers. If a new battery tech or consumer trend emerges and Renault takes 4 years to respond, the market has already completely moved on. They have to move at the speed of software.
And to manage that blistering speed without quality just falling apart, they're leaning heavily on AI. The sources outline that Renault is utilizing artificial intelligence to supervise over 1,000 specific control points on the manufacturing line in real time.
That's a lot of oversight.
Yeah, and the financial targets born from this are incredibly aggressive. By using this AI and the industrial metaverse, they aim to have factory downtime. They plan to cut factory energy use by 25%. And all this translates to a €400 reduction in variable costs per vehicle.
Now, €400 per vehicle might not sound like much to a consumer buying a, €30,000 car. But when you are targeting 2 million sales a year, you are talking about freeing up nearly €1 billion in capital.
And they claim it won't just be cheaper. It will be objectively better. They're targeting a 50% reduction in quality incidents right out of the gate.
Wow.
Plus, they're setting up 3 digital control towers to monitor their entire global supply chain, aiming to slash logistics costs by another 30%.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yes.
this obsession with ultimate manufacturing efficiency leads to what I think is the most fascinating part of the Future Ready plan.
Which part?
Well, because Renault's new platforms and their AI-monitored factories are projected to be so incredibly efficient, they are going to have excess manufacturing capacity.
Oh, okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so they're going to use it to build cars for their own rivals.
This is the trust-ready pillar of their strategy,
Yeah.
right? And represents a massive paradigm shift. By 2030, Renault plans to manufacture over 300,000 vehicles a year for third parties across 3 different continents.
And the client list isn't just minor regional players either.
No. It includes their alliance partners, Nissan and Mitsubishi, obviously, but it also includes the Volvo Group, the Chinese giant Geely, and even Ford.
Renault is essentially acting as the Foxconn of the automotive industry in certain key regions. Think about how Foxconn operates. Apple designs the iPhone, but Foxconn actually builds it because Foxconn has mastered the brutal logistics of scaled manufacturing.
Right.
Renault is offering that exact service to its competitors. For example, India is going to become a major hub for Renault to build Nissan models.
But why would a massive company like Ford or Volvo pay Renault to build their cars? Like, why not just do it themselves?
Because the European market and certain emerging markets have distinct, incredibly complex regulatory and supply code hurdles. Setting up a new, compliant EV supply chain from scratch in Europe is brutally expensive and takes years.
So they just outsource the headache.
Exactly. Renault is basically walking up to these competitors and saying, look, we already built the 800-volt platform, we already wrote the Google OS, we already have the humanoid robots and the zero rare earth motors, just pay us and we will build your cars for you.
It just proves that the transition to electric vehicles is so hyper expensive that going it alone is basically financial suicide for all but the absolute largest players in the world.
It really is.
Survival requires unprecedented, almost uncomfortable levels of collaboration. Renault is pooling their R&D. In fact, the plan specifically caps their R&D spending strictly below 8% of revenue. They are sharing the financial burden, maximizing every single inch of their factory floor, and turning their manufacturing prowess into a completely separate revenue stream.
It's a complete reimagining of what an automaker actually is. They are transitioning from a company that just sells cars into a technology and manufacturing service provider that happens to sell cars.
Which brings us back to you, the person listening to this right now. What does the future ready plan actually mean for your life and next car you put in your driveway?
It means the very nature of mobility is shifting beneath our feet.
Exactly. The next vehicle you purchase might have an 800-volt architecture that lets you recharge in the time it takes to grab a coffee. It might be physically assembled by a humanoid robot, guided by a digital twin in the metaverse.
Its operating system will likely be updated overnight by Google, improving its range while you sleep.
Yeah, and because of those massive efficiencies, it might actually be affordable. But the craziest part of all, thanks to this new open source manufacturing strategy, that hyper-advanced robot-built car might not even have a Renault badge on the hood.
Right, it could be a Ford or a Nissan or a Volvo, all utilizing the same brilliant French engineering underneath.
It is a brave new world for the industry, and the sheer scale of the transformation Renault is attempting is awe-inspiring. It's a massive gamble, but if they pull it off, it creates a completely new blueprint for legacy survival.
It truly does.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into Renault's massive pivot, we really want to take a moment to just say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a world of endless scrolling, 15-second videos, and just total information overload, you choosing to spend this time with us to deeply learn about the mechanics of a complex, shifting industry is a really powerful choice. We deeply appreciate the time you dedicate to being curious, to looking past the headlines, and to staying well informed.
Thank you so much for diving into the dense details with us. It is genuinely a privilege to unpack these topics for you every single time.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to mull over today. If the car of the near future is built on a shared modular platform powered by Google's centralized software, utilizing a battery chemistry shared across the entire industry, and is potentially manufactured by a rival company's robots in an AI-supervised megafactory, what actually defines a car brand's unique identity in the 21st century? We'll see you next time.